Everybody loves an underdog story, and this one's one that I feel particularly connected to, especially since it's so close to home. Hello everybody, this is Ash from PPTV back with another episode of Audio Archaeology. And today we're going to talk about an audio electronics maker that has a mildly insane trajectory. We're talking about ancient Vocaloid, Chinese-speaking computers, price wars, viral videos, as well as suing Steve Jobs and actually walking away with 100 million in settlement. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the curious case of Singapore's creative labs. This may be a company with a comparatively lower profile, especially if you look at the previous companies and manufacturers that we've covered, but that doesn't make them any less influential for their early innovation and adaptation. For instance, you might recognize them in their Sound Blaster cards, their Creative Zen players, as well as their more recent Super X5 series of products. Their focus on technological research and development allows them to make a pretty penny from the patents that they've developed and the licensing costs that they charge. All in all these things make Creative Labs something of an oddity, and we're gonna dive into that for the next few minutes. Back to 1981, in a PC repair shop in Singapore's Chinatown, where Sim Wong Hu, Ng Kai Wah and Chee Kwong Soon worked out of. Eventually, the trio managed to develop an add-on memory board for the Apple II. And following the success of the endeavour, funded out of Sim's pockets, Creative continued to stick with computers a little while after. In 1984, they released the Cubic 99, which left its mark on vintage tech history as one of the first computers to be designed and produced in Singapore, and also one of the first computers with a vocal synthesizer board that could produce basic voices and melodies. It was known as a talking computer because it had the aforementioned groundbreaking vocal technology that is the ancestor of future vocal synthesizer softwares like Vocaloid. So if you were a degenerate otaku like I am in between the years of 2007 to about 2015, you would know that the early Vocaloid synthesizer tracks sounded extremely rough. And while I may not have clips of the Cubic 99's voice synthesizer here, I do have something similar from the channel called Retrobits. It is of a 1981 Texas Instruments vocal synthesizer. Take a listen.
This is the Texas Instruments speech synthesizer.
It was stellar in both its price as well as its functionality and sold extremely well. That was at least until the IBM clones came and flooded the market and sort of pushed it out of that top spot. Following this was the Cubic CT, a IBM-compatible PC adapted for the Chinese language that had multimedia features like pretty pictures as well as voices and melodies. But unfortunately, it came slightly before its time because during that point in time, the demand for multilingual computers just wasn't quite there. These early failures, however, were followed by an age of trailblazing, where Creative became one of the first companies in the world to release a CD-ROM drive. That was also the time where they finally made their mark in digital audio by releasing their iconic Sound Blaster card. So from what I've heard around the net and in real life, because I came slightly after that time, the Sound Blaster card was genuinely beloved by musicians who were making digital music at the dawn of the digital era. The Sound Blaster card was the standard for consumer audio on the IBM PC compatible system platform that was before the widespread transition to Microsoft 95. It's still one of Creative's most iconic properties, and its name still lives on and is being milked to death by things like Creative's Sound Blaster speaker and their comparatively new gaming arm, Sound Blaster Gaming. By the year 1996, Creative's revenues had peaked at a whopping US 1.6 billion, which factors to something like 2.8 billion in today's numbers. With pioneering investments in voice-over IP and media streaming, Creative seemed well poised to take over the next era of digital media. However, a decision that they made at the turn of the century changed their fates. Creative chose to venture back into the CD-ROM market and was forced to write off 100 million worth in inventory after that due to the influx of cheaper alternatives and the market's subsequent collapse. That was the end of the era and the beginning of the age of Creative's player wars. In 1999, Creative took its first step into the world of digital audio players. MP3 players in the parlance of that time. They entered the market with their Nomad, flash drive MP3 players, which were to become the foundation of their later, more well-known Creative Zen players. The company released a range of high-quality, budget-friendly new models like the Zen Touch, the Zen Micro, and Zen Stone, and embarked on a massive global advertising campaign in a bid to unseat the MP3 world's #1 hit honcho, Apple's iPod. Honestly, Creative's Zen player looked great and worked well. I can kind of speak to that because that was actually during my time. When I was about 10 or 11 years old, I had a Creative Micro that was neon green, and I packed it with lots of favorite songs, downloaded off. It's okay, we'll just censor it out post-production. But back then, basically what I'd do is that I'd plug it into a pair of IEMs and then like hang it over the railing, the hold handle on top of my dad's car, turn the volume all the way out, and blast the music through the earphones. I was not the brightest bulb, but I think I turned out fine after that. And from what I could remember, their efforts were an outwork success. I remember seeing tons of people in Singapore holding Creative Zen players. They never quite managed to usurp the iPod's top spot though. They did, however, walk away with about 16.5% in market share, which was second only to Apple. But these signs of success and increasing market dominance came at a price. The company was suffering from low margins on their exceedingly affordable prices, and this hit finally registered in August 2005. Creative reported its first loss in 3 years, and that was a quarterly loss of US 31.9 million. That was also accompanied by a write-off of about 20 million Sing dollars in products, so that was an internal flop. 2006 was the legendary year that Creative sued Apple. According to Sims, Steve Jobs visited the Creative booth at a trade show and liked what he saw. He subsequently invited the Creative team to Apple's headquarters to discuss the possibility of collaboration and to present their new technology. This collaboration never happened, and when the iPod came out, Sim recognized his own technology in the new product, perceiving it as a slight to the company as well as a theft of intellectual property. This led to Creative suing Apple for infringements relating to a patent on user interface technology, and Apple countersuing Creative for the exact same thing. The patent in question covered an interface that allowed users to sort of scroll through an expanding menu of options. Basically, you could select an artist, select a particular album by that artist, view all the tracks in that album, and select the track that you want to be played. Yes, we are talking about the exact same interface that's in your smartphone music player, your Tidal, your Spotify, your DAP, your rusty old MP3 player that you have at home. Creative apparently filed for this patent all the way back in January of 2001. This litigation was eventually settled out of court when Apple paid Creative a one-time fee of $158 million for rights and a permission to use the interface in their products. Those of you who, like me, like to lurk on the darker crannies of the internet might have came across this video.
This is rock and roll.
It's of Creative Labs employee Paul Xiao demonstrating the percussion function in Creative's Protokeys MIDI keyboard.
And small drums called tom-toms.
It went viral for the hilarious contrast between Paul's very calm, cheerful delivery and the way he positively shredded the keyboard at the end. Making it one of the internet's first viral videos. Now turning our focus to the Protokeys themselves, it was actually a pretty nifty contraption that combined a QWERTY keyboard with a keyboard. During an age where MIDI musicians basically sat at their computers and made music all the time, it was something that was very, very in demand, and it actually sold very, very well all the way until Creative stopped supporting it after Windows 7. So that is two other achievements from Creative down: the Protokeys Mini keyboard and its very own viral video. Everything that I've mentioned thus far is actually pretty ancient history in digital audio terms, which begs the question, how has Creative been doing in more recent time? Despite going at a much slower release pace than in the past, Creative has managed to make classics of almost every single product that they've released. Take the Sound Blaster Raw for an example. Seriously, that thing is the third person in the relationship between me and my partner, given how much that guy just brings the speaker everywhere. These Bluetooth speakers have pretty much attained cult status with their stellar sound quality and how hardy they are, earning them the status of all-reliable in most households despite their slightly outdated form factor. The Creative's more recent Super X5 series of holographic Bluetooth earbuds and earphones have also made a mark for themselves in the industry, earning themselves about 23 Best of CES awards between the years of 2019 and 2020. It also earned its fair share of mixed consumer reviews, with some people really appreciating the sort of space and positioning that the technology brought to the table, and other people really disliking it for how digital it sounded. Honestly, what I've covered today is just the tip of the iceberg. Creative's history features so many more lawsuits and memorable products that all I could do is to curate a little slice of its story and present it to you here. There is a veritable rabbit hole to fall into, and you'll find good places to start in the links below. Some people may call Creative lawyer happy, but other people may argue that patent protection and R&D and basically licensing costs have always been a part of Creative's strategy. Either way, according to their 2018 AGM report, Creative did gain about US 63 million in terms of litigation costs and settlements. I'll also have the source for that linked below. Unlike Sony, iRiver, Estelle and Kern, Creative actually doesn't have any particularly notable releases very recently, unless you count the Sound Blaster, Katana, version 2, gaming soundbar. I think that's pretty much it. And despite its release pace continually slowing down, I highly doubt that Creative will be going anywhere in the next few years, simply due to how tenacious of a man Sim Wong-Hoo is. So that's it for today's more indie episode of Audio Archaeology. Like this video, subscribe if you want, and leave a comment down below of what you thought of today's episode. This has been Ash. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you when I see you again. Bye-bye. In 1999, this litigation, oh my god. So that's it for